I'm going to use the screen here for a bit, and yes, you can totally see me, but I'm backwards. All right. I'm going to go here. And screen share. No, I want application window, events share. Okay. You are screen sharing. Present to everyone. Sure. Okay. So, which, oh. we're gonna more get started and talk about growing of GANs. And I don't know if you guys have seen this video. I'm sharing it. I think I am. So this is the video. It doesn't have any sound at all. And I can hold on. Let me back on here. And you guys can see it. Let me just this. There we go. There. So first of all, what are we trying to do? Adversarial networks, or GANs, are all the rage in community. The whole goal is to train something, at least in this thing. They're using this to test this against this database called Celeb A. Able to teach it a machine to be able to draw people. In this case, we want to draw pictures of pretty celebrities. What we're going to do is feed that machine a batch of pictures of celebrities. And in fact, this there's the discussion on how you put this database together is a whole nother discussion of pictures of people, and this is part of the database. It's a large database. It's pictures of faces. You know, we're not trying to do bodies. We're not trying to do anything. We're just pictures of celebrity faces. And so this enormous database, which has something like 50,000 or more images, I don't know, to a machine and tell it to learn how to create images. You get images like that. That is not a real person. That is something woo. That is not a real person. That is not a real person. Look like any of the people in the database. It's not like it's finding a picture of a person in the database and presenting it or doing a slight modification on it. Basically, you're going through and exploring what they call this latent space of images that look like pretty celebrities. None of those are in the original. So something that generative adversarial networks can do, and we'll talk about how they do it, and we'll go through a review of that again. Paper is little number right there, 24 by 1024. Creates a high-resolution image, and that is a high-resolution image from machine learning. But that's a lot of data that you have. That's a lot of pixels that the machine has to learn how to fill in. And very slow. Figure this. The time down there. We can go back over this. The network actually growing in resolution. The in this that says at the bottom. The neural network is in the, and what they do is, let's look at this there. And then they basically snapshot of the network that they're creating and said, if we stopped it right here, what kind of images would we produce? And you can see how the images that you produce are resolution, right? These are very small resolution. Time goes on, 20 hours. Now all of a sudden you can see that this is starting to look good. This person's fuzzy and actual. And then 2 days later, the sudden to shortly asking, give us all of a sudden, every single one of the images that this thing produces, if we pause it at any point, it produces reasonable people. And after 17 days of training, images of people, 1,000 by 1,000 resolution, again, high for things, and then you can stop it at any time. You can go, what? That person listens like. Once you begin is you can basically say we can control person and looking more than your basic values. And but if you're moving it up, you get a kind of a different person.
We lost somebody.
Lost ourselves. Oh, poop. What happened? Let's try it again. Sorry.
There are people on the other side?
Oh.
It's using many info.
Oh yeah, this is a database of about 50.
Because all of those ones in between, they were kind of like.
For men that clearly.
And loud and right now, this is, I mean, not Google. Google's working fine. We're being YouTube recorded. Sides.
Should make for some role play game character selection series. Playing a game right. Good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Barely working. Hey. Well, let's see. I said Redondo directly. Well, I see a lot of life-size clouds. Or worse. For no, the YouTube down too.
No,
life-size. Sorry. Is that Redondo? Please dial the. I mean, in the size cloud using YouTube experience will be so. I'm gonna dial it here. Oh, yeah, totally. Oops. Better. Sorry. Better.
Some of that technicals from the nightclub store.
I mean, that's exactly what the space-time continuum looks like. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Is it good? You're okay. Good. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm going to switch back. Sorry for the little wiggle, but that's what that's how this works. Some people joined us late. The database that this was being used to train with, yield people, about 1,000 or more. Is part of the Celeb-A database used to train that generative adversarial network. Yeah, they were talking about gender and stuff. So the more morphing between the images that look like celebrities, and some of those images are kind of some cool stuff in the paper that talks about what they did. This conducive to this kind of morphing, but we're not going to talk about that today. They also did it on, there's another database called LSUN, categories of things. You have 256 by 256, so not nearly as tons and tons of objects. This thing with that, get back and forth, but you can see you can morph between birds and all sorts of stuff. And remember, the things that are real things. These are things that look, and you see one point, you'll cool pictures from that. These are generated from whole cloth. And sometimes it works, and then I'm going to switch. And then today, in the room, how so fun. A review of generative adversarial. A lot of generative adversarial, and we're going to go into today networks. Because we have and actual details. But first, a big picture. That's what this has a nice little description of this. Typically, a GAN generative consists of two of a oh, that's a juicy one. So and a discriminator. There's a neat, which we'll get in, which I thought was pretty cool. So now, cute images, image after image and celebrity. The names of the celebrities we don't know anything, but there is and it is large. or 50,000 of these guys. You see yourself and you go, I don't know. With a whole bunch of, I want to have something at the end of it, this generate and that looks like a celebrity. You do that. First of all, to determine exactly what a celebrity consists of. In fact, it's so gender and discriminator. Generator produces a sample, i.e. an image from a latent code, and we'll explain what that is. This is the case. Whether the generators that actually fall with distribution of images of celebrities network is basically, it's really hard for us to think about writing a program that would take the input of that generator is going to spit out. Remember, it's going to generate images of, and to say whether or not the image looks like the images that are in this bucket. Hard. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to start thinking about that. So the guy trying to distinguish between whether or not I came up with the images in that bucket. The generative standard neural network can take the derivatives of. We can also so think about how this is going to work. We need some things that are going to tell us what the generator should do. Is create this thing latent. It's a thing that spits out random numbers. It's a vector. So this will use like third randomness between 32 random values between this is a little bit more complicated than that. But it's basically saying something that can spit out images. I need something to tell me to spit out. Control this. Now, I know this is what a certain amount of values that are going to control this thing. And what we're basically doing is saying, let's back up a bit. Right? I've been distribution of images, and I've mentioned this before. If you think about these images, those are by 1024, right? And so you can take it 1024 and stretch it out into I have a point. Three-dimensional. I have a point in this 1 million dimensional space, that image. And in fact, everything in one, our pixel values go from 0 to 1 or 0 to 256 or whatever. I have a value of 1 million dimensional space. In this pixel to 1, that image. But there are only certain images in here, images in that bucket, which are images of celebrities. Some of these points are actual celebrity images. Of course, you can't draw an image. Imagine that there's this weedy kind of looking thing in space. And you're also thinking, because you came in yesterday talking dimensionality, not only is this weird shape in millions, it's also very hard to control kind of thing, an interesting distribution. So saying, you know, this code of points that represent the images in this million-dimensional space of all images is basically browse through that. We're going to use these numbers, which is only 32 dimensions, control how we travel through this. We basically are hoping I'm taking a nice little space in million dimensions, and I'm spitting out the images. Well, maybe not. Now, 32 may not be enough to actually really thinking, wait, this sounds really familiar. Isn't there something called a principal component in it? There's a thing where you can take this kind of data and you can actually out the biggest vectors in this million dimensional space. That's exactly what principal component analysis does, is it looks at this crazy ass thing and it says, you know, this cloud of points has this sort of weird space. Most of it with only numbers, not a million numbers. And so that's what we're doing. We're going to split them in head, but we'll try to experiment with the latent variable to see how many numbers we need to celebrity space. We can slide back and forth, and we're going to be hopefully inside this cloud of celebrity images. And at the end of this, this will produce an image, or does it? Well, that's the job of the discriminator. The discriminator, it's fed that image, images from the real, or the real image from real images from the bucket, and this is a random feed. Randomly, images from, and it doesn't have to be random. You can actually, there are techniques with GANs to say, hey, let's have images versus the fake images to train this thing. But basically, we're going to get either a real image or a fake image, and the discriminator can. And so it is producing exactly two values: 0 if it's fake, if it's real. Now, this is where the unsupervision comes into place. What we're telling it is that this is either fake or this is the only way that we produces can tell 0. It's working. Producing, and it hope that it's a change of. Or we send it a real, make a real. So now we're going to produce images, and then this thing is going to be creating to the image is actually real or not. What you do with it is and noisy images. Is get a discriminator and bootstrap this thing. This is, and we turn this on and start. It learns how to between noise and real images, but we don't train it too much. We train it and then we stop. And once it's gotten okay, we then take a moment and train the generator in images. And again, and whether or not this is right or wrong, and we start fixing this. So with the discriminator that it's producing real is correct. What we're hoping is the discriminator. So and we going to change the generator, gets better. Or if we shoot a real image, you want to see if we can make this. We don't. And then once we've gotten this guy a little bit better, we stop out for now. Okay, that was a 10-minute introduction to adversarial networks. Yes, of course. Memory. There's this has stations, and that's what there's of the paper. Really cool images. They said, you know, solutions is really tricky. This paper. All right. The generation is difficult because higher resolutions make it easier to tell the generated images from the training images. Higher resolution images aren't just possible from data. Because large resolution images, smaller mini batches. One of the things with neural nets is, well, especially when you're reading neural net papers, 3 terms that we're going to talk about right now. And so neurons. First of all, in a neural net, and this is gradient for nearby whatsoever equals 0 number of to recognize cat as cat. Train with even simpler adversarial networks. What we end up doing for this kind of training is create it of cat pictures and pictures. So label, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a tree, and so on. And we have all sorts of pictures, 1,000 pictures of things, only some of which are labeled cats. So what we're going to do is we've got our neural network and we want to train it. The first thing you'll see in algorithms is for I equals 0 to number of x. So it's epic. Is showing the neural net in your training set. Gone through however net, and the neural net has seen everything in the training set. That is one epoch. So the number of your training set is the we're going to do. Well, how do you do this? Well, the first thing you do for images through your neural net. And images through Once you've sent the images through, you compute, and I'm being super vague here. And then you're going to adjust neural net parameters to using and that's actually pretty easy, right? That's the whole concept, is that you take the image and decide whether or not it's right or wrong. Depending on whether it's right or wrong, we're going to compute the derivative of how to change these parameters. We're going to say, hey, this thing is slightly off. It's not a cat or whatever. See what we would need to do to change all the parameters in our neural net. And there can be millions of parameters in here, but we're going to compute the derivatives of that. Derivatives back through. But now there's details in this. Think about when I do this, when I send in a single image through this neural net, you'd be able to compute the derivatives at the evaluation of this crazy-ass function that is the neural net of that image. So we'll get derivatives that are very specific towards that image. And that's where these guys come into play. Techniques for sending the images through, computing the derivatives, and adjusting the parameters. So in the batch case, in the batch training of a neural net, this line says, send all your images through. The image that you've gone through here, send each and every one of them through your neural net. All the derivatives for each one of those, for each individual image. We're going to combine those images and adjust the neural net in the sort of average, or there's all sorts of ways of combining the derivative. Adjustment to the neural net based on the entire gestalt of our entire data set at that time. So in one epoch, we go through every single one of the images, compute a single derivative, and adjust the neural net. This has the advantage of being very stable. It's a great way because you get to see everything. It's also got the disadvantage of being slow. It's awfully slow because, first of all, you don't want to adjust the neural net too much. You have to go through every single image in order to adjust it even just once. On the other side of things, the stochastic gradient descent is basically saying, wow, they put in a new loop for j equals 0 to images. And we do this loop over and over and over again. And we take one image, send it through the neural net for that one image, and adjust all the parameters in the neural net, and send it back through. We do the next image, send it through, compute derivatives, boop. This is great. This thing moves like a son of a gun, but it's noisy as all get out. Because every time you're computing the derivative, you're doing it at a different part of this function, right? You're moving over there and moving over there, and it's bouncing around. So this has the advantage. You're good at getting out of local minimum. This function might get trapped in a local minimum, or even worse, a saddle point. Pop it out of those because it's great. But it also might not converge as fast as you want. And then finally, a mini batch is the combo of those things. So what you do here for j equals 1 to batch, or well, num images divided by batch size. And typically before here, you take all your images and shuffle them. So image, and then you go through for equals 1 to images in, oh, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. Oops. And then we do send batch through. Right? So here, what we're doing is saying, okay, I'm going to take just a small number of images, but I'm going to still treat them as a batch. And so I'm going to send every single one of them through, use all of them to compute some sort of derivative based on this sampling, and then adjust the neural network according to that. And so you can actually have this thing go through, you still have to go through all your images in batches, where this number of the batch size might be 100 or something. And you take 100 images, send it through, and it's not nearly as expensive. And it gives you more stability than pure stochastic gradient descent method. This is an important part of training and reading neural networks, because often they'll talk about these things, and especially because it's batch and mini-batch, and inside my brain at least, these things kind of squish together. They're just batches. Well, this thing is significantly different than that.
Can I ask a question?
You bet you can.
I'm guessing I might be one of the most naive audience members, so
that's okay.
Talk about this later if you want. But when you say compute derivatives, what does that mean? What are the derivatives?
Well, we will talk about this later. I'm going to actually, I'm not going to not answer your question, but we're going to answer your question along the way. All right, so far so good. So now, all right, our key insight in this paper is that we can grow both the generator and the discriminator progressively, starting from easier, low-resolution images, and add new layers that introduce higher resolution details as the training progresses. This greatly speeds up the training and improves stability in high resolutions. So how do they do it? It's actually pretty good. So let's start off. We have our latent variables, right? So these are the control values, or well, just sort of a random number generator that's spanning a smaller dimensional space. And that is going to go into, now we're going to put in here, this is, it's too much, let's go here. This area here is the generator. Can't stop that. And then over here, we're going to have a dotted line. And over here is the discriminator. And at the very beginning, we're going to start off with a 4x4 convolutional number. And this is where I'm going to get to your derivative. So we've got our bucket of images, and they call it, they put it off to the side here, and they call it real images. So we have our big list of celebrities, and these are 124 by 124 sized images. And at the very beginning, we're going to go through and resize them so they are 4 by 4, right? 4 by 4. Both the generator and discriminator having a low spatial resolution of 4 by 4 pixels. So the very first thing we're going to do is train this, and this goes all the way down to here. And there's a discriminator with a single 4 by 4 convolutional neural net. Right? Yep. And that spits out whether it's real or fake. That goes into here. All right. So right off the bat, you can see that this thing is going to run faster. This is going to run really quickly because it's only 4 by 4. It's doing all that magic on just. But after that, we're going to go into the details of this. Up the resolution. We're going to go to 8 by 8. And at the same time that we do that, once this is converged, we're going to go into 8 by 8 here And this is an 8x8 convolutional network. So here, n by n refers to convolutional layers operating on n by n spatial resolution. Layers, and we'll zoom in on this, that work on, starts out at 4x4, then 8x8, and so on. And eventually, we're going to build a pyramid of things that eventually work out to be 1024 by 1024. And this all seems fairly straightforward, right? And one of the things they talk about is that it's really difficult to just do this, right? You have a neural network, a generative adversarial network, that at the very beginning that is good at creating 4x4 images of celebrities and distinguishing between 4x4 images of celebrities and real 4x4 images of celebrities. Maybe that's not all that useful. When we then throw the 8x8 images of the celebrities at this, you have to be careful that you don't screw up the good stuff that you've done here by just throwing in a brand new whole bunch of numbers of parameters. You don't want to, and they actually called it shock the system. When we stick this in, we have to be actually a little bit careful about doing that. But if we can do this, then when we get to the 8x8 level, we start training this again. We start up the training session where we train the discriminator, and train the generator, and train the discriminator. And all these variables that are inside here are up for grabs. We can change all the values. You don't lock 4x4 as it is. You say, okay, all of this is there. So it starts out fast, but as it goes on, it's eventually going to get slower and slower. But the hope is that once you get to the 1024 by 1024 level, you don't have to do much. You're already producing really good levels of celebrity at this. This is more like, let's just raise the resolution of the celebrity. What you need to do should be very simple. You're already very converged on creating celebrities. Let's hope that we don't have to spend much time at this very expensive level because we've created a big network here. How do you do the insertion? This is kind of cool. So when I go from 16 by 16, first thing I need to do is be able to create right here. We're zooming in a bit. Say we've gotten to the 16 by 16 level. And right before we get to this dotted line, we have to make sure that the thing that comes out of the generator is actually an image. And then we have the from RGB, which is perfectly okay. This is the top level of the generator, which is basically accepting that image and or the 16 by 16 scale real image. So we have a from RGB, which I'll explain in just a moment. A 16 by 16 neural net that then spits out real or fake. Okay, so if I want to go to 32 by 32, the first thing I have to do is add an upsample. So I have to add something here, times in resolution. Because the next layer of this thing is expecting a 32 by 32. So here, I insert my 32 by 32. Right? And this is the cool thing. They take this and shoot it over into an adder with an alpha and a 1 minus alpha with this. And actually our RGB image. For 2 RGB. Oops, I'm sorry. The 2 RGB comes first. So there's 2 RGB. And then that goes into here. And that is actually the image that comes out. Right? So this is something that this is the way they're 16 by 16 generative adversarial network is converged. It's producing decent results. Solution, the next thing. So the first thing we do is upsample error, which isn't necessarily an image. Try this, the internal representations of the neural network. And we multiply it by 2. To the 32 by 32 thing, we're all good. But first, we also want to convert that, which is what we were just doing. Remember the green R2 RGB. We're going to keep that, and then we're going to take the results of this and fade it in. This alpha is going to start out, we take the old good results, and then we'll turn the alpha down so that we start to get better and better and better. So we do those iterations that it was just, it starts out at 1 and then eventually goes down to 0, right into 2. And you know what? The same thing here for the, you have a plus sign and an alpha 1 minus alpha over here. Exact same thing. I'm not even going to draw it out because it's complicated. But as you do this in lockstep so that you slide in the 32 in both the generator and the discriminator at the same time. Naturally just up their resolution. Really clever idea. So now you're not just adding random numbers that screw everything up. You have time to get better while I stay knowing what I know. The 16 by 16 was good. Here's a whole bunch of new random numbers, but I could screw everything up. But now we say, no, take your time. Get better. We'll let you go in and eventually catch up with whatever else we've computed beforehand. Now, we're going to dive even deeper into this. This thing. If we go to the appendix for this, a convolutional network, and I'm actually going to draw it this way, so the input comes into here. So we're going to have a 4x4 convolutional, right? But we're going to have 512 layers. So each one of these layers is a 4x4 convolution. It's like, wait, what? It's kind of weird, isn't it? Think about what's going on. The initial convolution is the image. So the convolution is just a dot product of all the numbers. That's okay. It's actually a perfectly valid convolution. We're just taking a 4x4 and multiplying it by a 4x4 image. Perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. We have 512 of these guys. So we have this 4x4 times 512 arrays of, right? And each one of those guys is going to get multiplied by that image. This will produce a great big vector of numbers that is all the way up to 512. Then, from here, we're going to run this through, and I think I'm right, yeah. Latent vector, convolution 4x4, output shape 512 by, they're even sliding this across. They are sliding this across even the 4x4 image, but they've got a 4x4 convolution. So they are actually producing 4 times 512. All right. Could be 3 by 3 convolution, B3, and there are 512 of these. So 512. So this, the image comes in through here, 4 by 4 image, 4 by 4 images. It's a big list of 4 by 4 images. That goes into here, gets convolved with 3 by 3, and this eventually produces a by 4 by 4. About that a little bit. This seems a little odd. I'm caught off a little bit. But getting to you, Rafe. Interesting that whatever the case, it's convolved with these guys and produces a great big that's involved with 3 by 3. A great big list of images as well. Derivatives are, what are the variables in this equation? The values of these guys. So these values are the things that can change inside the neural net. So here we have a 4 by 4 convolutional filter. Initially being learned in the neural net. And so if we stop right there, and we compare the image that we produced, whether or not it worked in discriminator, that says whether or not, and we can take that right or wrong value and basically for each and every one of the variables. And there are a lot of variables, right? There's 4 by the number of convolution filters. Look at my right or wrong value, change that alpha there. Value beta. With respect to each and I get more possible time. The partial derivative these variables. And it's assuming everything all the ways possible. What I'm going to do is make a small change to the derivatives and adjust this ever so slightly so that lightning back. The result of this, compare what you have variables to make that result more for what you want to change. So at the end of the appendix, what's going on? How are you group this end of this some represent what take it's 5 by 4. But the first thing you do with that is upsample. And then you upsample it again, so this reduces 500 by 16, and eventually eventually you get where you RGB and squish that all down into a 1024 image. You have that there are around 2 million variables that you can change. So depending on whether you're actually doing small changes. This is very slow. And it's much faster to convert. You're starting off at this low variable, things very rapidly. It takes a long time because you're eventually getting to these enormous images. It's the enormous images. Some of these generative adversarial things, and then for one reason or another, because the noise gets crazy. Stable, because by the time you've gotten to getting up in high resolutions, solid neural nets. That's a great that you can actually change, and the sizes that you might have parameters. And classic thing, build this thing, and then you search for these hyperparameters. So now you're running one with 256 layers, one with 512 layers, one with 3
human results.
They spend a lot of time talking about how to tell whether or not things, and they made contributions, a memorable job. I recommend reading the other talk about this as they go into some instances and determine whether or not
the process into the 4
that.
Or that you're doing right at the end there. Turning your 5
yeah. 112 10 GB. Yeah, authors say, well, you use a convolution evolution. So if I have this image, it's a pixel image to image, one by one filter. So each one That's just a convolution. You're thinking about convolution. What you do is you apply the filter or pixel, squish it, and you put it into the output pixel. Convolution filter over here, put it into the next pixel, and so on. You slide it over. Or convolution, you just multiply by 2 and stick it there. When I first read this in neural, I was like, this thing in neural nets dimension. Convolution filter is being applied to 512 red, green, and blue. You have 5, and so when it's in that 1 by 1 filter, it's a 1 by 1 by 500 filter. Because it's a clear way of averaging the value. Well, not averaging, but doing a dot product. 3 1 by 1 convolutions. And you multiply it. You take this pixel and the other one. That this way of converting to the and make the change. So even the conversion from 512 by 1 and something channel 1000 by 1 is part of each one of them that were here, green and blue. It's a cool kind of thing. 1 by 1 convolution filter. Always remember there is when that with three-dimensional stack of images, a 4-dimensional stack of images. The dimensions that are going in here can be quite crazy. So 1 by 1 convolutional filter is not just multiplying by, it's multiplying by a whole bunch of values. It's basically doing a dot product through all the channels in your image. Does that make sense? Good question. I have an answer.
It seems like data, there's a lot of for different purposes. Like, train a neural net from it back to the trained into spontaneous 4K.
That is, people are doing that right now. And Microsoft processing are coming from the machine learning community.
So where's FBI agents and stuff, and like, can you just zoom and enhance?
The enhancing is actually becoming learned how to enhance stuff, and it may be making some stuff up, but yeah, it looks beautiful.
Doing that, that's not valid photographic evidence of anything. I'm imagining what's between those people.
Sure, learning doesn't.
I don't think it'd be valid.
Doing it 2K when I mean 4K when you can render 2K and you pop it up.
Getting in VR environment's pretty.
Exactly.
That's a lot.
Photoshop marking up with her. I know there's a lot out there, and that they're beautiful. Don't talk next week. We're going to be talking. Well, it's the holiday in January. We won't always talk about machine learning.